Folks, the kind of drama that is unfolding in Kenyan politics right now is very easy to miss. And it is easy to miss because we are accustomed to big headlines. And so something happens, and it does not make it to big headlines. Nobody notices it. Nobody even realizes it has unfolded. And yet it has very, very significant impact on Kenyan politics. And I will give you the perfect example. The woman representative for Kiambu, a lady known as Gathoni Wamuchomba, who was previously a radio host, on a very popular vernacular radio station, came out on May 6th and said that yes, it is true, Raila Odinga saved Uhuru Kenyatta from impeachment. And then she went on to castigate Central Kenya MPs, in fact Mount Kenya region members of parliament and politicians, and made the most sensational statement in Kenyan politics for a very long time. She said all these legislators had schemed to impeach President Uhuru Kenyatta, and that they had all been won over to the DP Ruto camp by small handouts. She mentioned 20,000 Kenya shillings. That is $200. She said that is the money they're given every weekend, and said that this is what had caused them to get involved in a very serious plot and scheme to impeach and therefore remove President Uhuru Kenyatta from power. Wah. Now, how that did not make it into a major national headline, I have no clue. Because the political implications are huge, colossal, mind-boggling. And of course, we're going to break them down in great detail until these implications cannot be broken down anymore in this video. So relax. Tafuta popcorn, tafuta chai, and let's get down to business. Now, before we go any further, let me just very quickly remind you who Gathoni Wamuchomba is. Now, last year, this legislator broke into national limelight when she said very convincingly that Kenyan men should abandon Western ideals and marry many wives. To the casual, this may be a remarks that are best ignored. Only that if you look at them in the context of the other events, political events that were unfolding, when she was making this statement, then everything changes. And you quickly realize this was not just a casual, off-the-cuff remark that was out of order. No, it was more than that. At around this time, the laws of Kenya were slightly adjusted. The laws to do with marriage. And those significant changes sailed through parliament at lightning speed. In a nutshell, they made polygamy in Kenya legal. So as I make this video, polygamy in Kenya is very legal, extremely legal. Now there's a reason why I'm emphasizing. You see, the issue of polygamy has always been a gray area as far as our laws are concerned. Because previously, you could only marry one woman legally, and have the marriage registered by the state. That is if you are Christian. Muslims did not have these hiccups. Because our 2010 constitution recognized Qadi courts and Muslim laws. Now, I appreciate what I'm saying may not make any sense to lawyers. I know that from my conversations with Hezron. Because as far as lawyers are concerned, polygamy is normal. Ati Kristo unasema kuvunja sheria namna gani? That's Hezron talking. But of course, Kenyans who have received a little exposure, who are out of the country living in Western countries, will know the impact of what I'm talking about. Because in the West, it is illegal. It is a criminal offense to marry more than one woman. Although I have a cousin, from my Luya side, residing in the UK, who is married to 2 women. Not legally, of course. In fact, an uncle of mine said this is very bad because this Luya is exporting Luya bad habits to the UK. Anyway, the long and short of these changes to the law that Jubilee made is that it is now possible in Kenya to marry more than one wife on paper. So that everything is documented, legally documented and on paper. Now, many people did not understand why these changes in law are being made by Jubilee, and most people ignored them. But when Gathoni Wamuchomba made her very controversial remarks, the kind of support she received from some certain quarters raised my eyebrows. And I did a bit of digging here and there, and I realized what it was all about. It was all about numbers during elections. There are people within the House of Mumbi community who feel that although the House of Mumbi population is still the largest in Kenya, their numbers have been depleted. And that for political survival and political reasons, this issue needs to be addressed very urgently. And the biggest hindrance to Kikuyus being many are single women who are not married. And perhaps sometimes they may end up with only one child. However, of course, the situation would be very different if they were officially married. My late political lecturer had more than one wife, even when my late mother was still alive. So let me educate you a bit on what goes on. In a nutshell, the rate of giving birth is influenced by competition between the wives within that marriage, within that polygamous marriage. Because trust me, if you're a woman, and saying I don't know what Chris is talking about, trust me, if you're in a polygamous marriage today, and your co-wife has 10 children, and you have one, I assure you would do something about that. I don't think I need to say anything more. I think you have now fully understood where these Gathoni Wamuchomba controversial remarks were coming from, and what their main aim or agenda was. And in my mind, this became very clear early this year when Gathoni Wamuchomba, who is married and is still very much in a monogamous marriage with a man called Robert Mbogwa, was interviewed by a vernacular radio station. And obviously the person interviewing her remembered her remarks of 2017. And he asked her, would you be ready to accommodate a co-wife in your marriage currently? Her answer was very clear. No way. She went on to elaborate that if by some accident or bad luck her husband had a child out of wedlock with another woman, she has no problem looking after that child and catering for that child. But another woman in her marriage, you saw. Now, that is strange. Then what was she talking about in 2017? Anyway, you now understand. So that is Gathoni Wamuchomba for you. But I'm going to go beyond this later on in this video. Let me deal with the politics first. Because I'm going to open a can of worms concerning this issue of polygamy. Because in my view, it is inevitable. Because of very curious changes and major changes happening in society. And of course, I'll be wearing a crash helmet. Because I know we have very many ladies, good ladies, who are subscribers on this channel. And their views on polygamy are rather obvious. But in case you have not heard, the King of Swaziland, King Mswati III, has ordered all men in the country to marry at least 2 wives. In fact, he has instructed them to marry 5 wives. And the state will cater for the wedding, so they don't need to worry about the wedding ceremony. The state will cater for all that. So that, for instance, if you have only 1 wife, you can go ahead and do number 2, number 3, all footed by the government. Number 4, footed by the government, all bills paid, plus number 5. And that's not all. the government has also said they'll provide houses. And the king is serious because he has said any man or any woman who opposes this law will be jailed for life. And so it is a serious criminal offense to have one wife in Swaziland currently. The king also added that any man found with less than 2 wives, ndani, will be jailed for life. Anyway, we'll come to those issues later on in this video. Let's deal with the politics. And indeed, it is very hot politics. Because according to me, Gathoni Wamuchomba's very sensational remarks that Central Kenya, Mount Kenya members of parliament were preparing to impeach Uhuru before Raila came along with the handshake. If you thought that was the major statement or the major development in this, you're wrong. Because something else happened in response to what Wamuchomba said. That to me, it just floored me. Okay? And I'll tell you what that is in a moment. So after Wamuchomba spoke, she got a response from a DP Ruto diehard supporter in Murang'a Women's Rep, Sabina Chege. Sabina was addressing wananchi in Murang'a at a place called Kenol Town, Kenol after the oil company. And Sabina emphasized that this was mere propaganda. She even asked Wamuchomba to repent for telling Kenyans lies. She said that they all loved the president and they would never in 100 years imagine impeaching their beloved President Uhuru Kenyatta, who hails from the region. Now this next part is what floored me. She went on to talk about, wait for this one, collapsing businesses belonging to Kikuyus. Businesses that have collapsed because of bad government policies or government policies that have completely destroyed previously prosperous and strong Kikuyu-owned businesses. Now, I have a feeling most of you have still not got the significance of what she said. And the significance is in the context of where she made these remarks. You see, I keep on saying on this channel that politicians, you have to be careful with them. You have to read between the lines what a politician is trying to say, because they will never say anything directly. And this is a phenomenon all over the world, not only in Kenya. So what do I mean by context? Well, sample this. She talks about Gathoni Wamuchomba's remarks about impeaching the president. And then, in the same speech, she moves on to collapsing businesses owned by Kikuyus that have collapsed because of terrible government policy. And who's the head of that government? Who is the head of that government that is passing bad policies that have shut down Kikuyu businesses? Now, I said this in a previous video. One of the reasons why the Deputy President William Samoei Ruto's camp has gained so much support in Central Province, support which many people doubt, while others are amazed, how did this man get such support from Central Province? The reason is he has been capitalizing on this complaint by the House of Mumbi that the government has destroyed their businesses. Now remember one thing, it is true that Moi destroyed many businesses owned by members of the House of Mumbi because he saw them as a political threat. That is true. However, take careful note of this. The businesses that Moi destroyed were big businesses. Very few individuals were involved. Moi targeted businesses that were big enough to destabilize his government. Otherwise, the normal businesses Yeah, and it's a fact. Sabina Chege also said in her speech, the majority of business owners in Nairobi hail from the house of Mumbi. Those businesses were not touched. And they have thrived through the years until the presidency of Uhuru Kenyatta. Now, this is a very hot political topic, yeah, and quite rightly so. And if you doubt, let me remind you that two interdenominational rallies, supposed to have been held by Deputy President William Ruto in the middle of Central Province, in fact in Murang'a, have been cancelled in quick succession. Let me spell it out for you. The president's handlers are very uncomfortable, yeah, and see this as a direct challenge and threat to his presidency for the deputy president to tanga in his backyard, yeah, where already there seems to be a lot of discontent, only for him to muddy the waters more. Yeah, I think now you fully understand the significance of what Sabina Chege said at Kenol Town, Murang'a. The long and short of all this, and this is very explosive, is that this strong opposition to the Uhuru Kenyatta administration from his own Kikuyu community is something very serious. It's not a joke. Because it is human nature. You can do many things to a man, but you destroy his livelihood. Na utajua ujui. Now let me make a confession here, because sometimes I'm wrong. Initially, when I heard these rumbles and mumblings from Central Province against the president, I was sure it was propaganda. I was sure that it was propaganda from the DP Ruto camp. The whole objective being to destabilize, yeah, the president's camp, so that it did not matter who the president, yeah, recommended to be his heir. Yeah, and what would happen is that the Central Kenya vote would go to DP Ruto. That's what I thought. But I was wrong. Very, very wrong. Folks, this thing is not propaganda. This thing is reality. This is what is happening on the ground. People have lost their businesses. There are very many members of the House of Mumbi, especially in the Nyamakima area in Nairobi, who have had to shut down their businesses. Yeah, many of them, their products have been seized at the port. Yeah, this is after getting KBS authorization, getting all the papers in order, and then your goods are seized. 2-3 containers. Yeah, fake goods, counterfeit goods. And when you add that to the other unfolding events, yeah, which in my view, some of them are good things, like the government clamping down on tax collection. Yeah, when you put all these things together, the pressure, yeah, on businesses, most of which are owned by members of the House of Mumbi, has been too much. So much so that some of these businesses have shut down. There's another very good thing the Uhuru Kenyatta government has done, which will still have negative political impact on the Uhuru Kenyatta administration. And this is the clamp down on illegal brews in Central Province. As damaging as these illegal brews are not drunk by animals. They are drunk by voters. Yeah, voters who just the other day were chanting, Komera, Komera. Now, what I'm about to say is very significant. Yeah, and the only reason I'm saying it is that I believe it is 100% factual. These anti-Uhuru Kenyatta presidency sentiments within the Central Province are not willing to wait for 2022 to have a change of guard. No way. They want change as soon as possible. Drama, being drama, Arab drama, all a drama. Gosh. And that is why it makes perfect sense for the president's men to be very jittery, yeah, about what would appear to be a harmless interdenominational rally where there would be prayers, apart from the political speech, happening in Murang'a. Because the deputy president has had rallies in Central Province before, all over Mount Kenya region. He has had these rallies. Many of them have not even had the word prayers included. They have been straight political rallies. And so, ask yourself, why is it all of a sudden so difficult for the Deputy President to have a mere interdenominational rally in Murang'a? Why is it proving to be so elusive all of a sudden? Well, now you know the answer to that question. And there's more. What has happened in Kenya over the last year or so is that very many Kenyans have moved away from tribal groupings. And they have faced the situation they're facing, and they're all talking in one voice as Kenyans. And that includes the House of Mumbi and other communities countrywide. Now, in case you didn't know, governments in Kenya, since the colonial days, have always survived on the principle of divide and rule. It has always been the worst nightmare of any Kenyan government for all communities in Kenya to join hands together against it. That has always been a nightmare. And that is why when President Daniel Arap Moi was busy hustling and frustrating Kikuyus during his reign, his own Kalenjin community were having a good time. Communities at the coast were booming. Communities in many other areas of Kenya were booming. And nobody wanted to upset the apple cart in those communities. They were saying this cooperation, this support of the Kanu government is good for us. Therefore, we don't want to hear anything. And Moi was able to go into public meetings and tell people in the face, multi-party democracy in Kenya, forget it. It will never happen. Kanu will rule for 100 years. But I need to remind you of something very significant that happened that changed everything. Now, I know some naive Kenyans believe that because of Moi's good heart, he later changed his mind and accepted multi-party democracy. Nothing can be further from the truth. What happened is that Western countries froze aid to Kenya. And so when Moi went on his knees to beg for money, the IMF introduced something in the country called Structural Adjustment Program, or SAPs as they're called. The long and short of these things, these strange sounding things, is that control on many things, including foreign exchange, were lifted. The sum total of all these developments is that, and this sounds very familiar, the sum total of it is that businesses collapsed. The Kenyan economy was in dire straits. And strong opposition to the Moi government, heavily financed by Western powers like the United States and many European countries, took off in Kenya. And that's how the second liberation happened. That is how multi-party democracy was introduced into Kenya. You know, the good book says, there is nothing new under the sun. What that means is that what has happened before will happen again. History just keeps on repeating itself. Because sample this, the Kenyan economy right now is in serious trouble. Sound familiar? Businesses are closing. Does that sound familiar? And one difference with the Moi days is that these days the Kenyan government relies heavily on Chinese money. And therefore, the Chinese have introduced certain things. For instance, the Huduma number, which is very unpopular with Kenyans. Do I need to say anything more? We're in a very dangerous situation. Because we are right back into the 90s, when Moi faced very serious challenges. And this time, it is much worse. During the days of Moi, there was no social media. During the days of Moi, Kenyans were not as highly educated as they are today. During the days of Moi, Kenyans, the vast majority of Kenyans, were not as aware, and exposed as Kenyans are today. Let me end this with a direct question to you. In those kind of circumstances, does the word revolution still sound far-fetched to you? Does it? Or let me just rephrase that question. Yeah, now burgers, yeah, beef burgers and hamburgers are a Western ideology. Many Kenyans in the rural areas have no idea what that is. So my apologies for using the hamburger as an example here to ask your question. In the 90s, yeah, somebody went and got the meat. Somebody went and bought the buns. Somebody went and got the charcoal, yeah, and lit the flame, yeah, and put the wire over the fire. And then, after a few seconds, the aroma, yeah, of roasting, yeah, meat hit the air. Yeah, you know, the roast meat that goes in the middle of a burger. And it was very clear that somebody was making a burger. Now fast forward to the present. Yeah, already we know somebody has bought the buns. Yeah, the meat we can already see there on the table. The makaa fire has already been lit and the wire is over the fire. So let me ask you a question. This time round, do you think somebody is about to make porridge? With all those ingredients ready at the table, do you think that somebody is about to roast sukuma wiki? Yeah, although sukuma wiki is never roasted. Is that what somebody is about to make? Or maybe they're about to make chapatis. Well, the ingredients for making all those other things I've mentioned are not there. But the ingredients for a burger are there. Jijazie. Anyway, on to polygamy manenos. Now, this is very interesting. Yeah, and believe it or not, it'll affect you and me sooner rather than later. Let me start with the documentary I recently took in. Yeah, you know, somebody criticized me and told me, Chris, you don't know enough about current social developments in the world. Yeah, and it comes out very clearly in your videos. You say things that don't exist. Now, let me tell you one secret about me. Whenever somebody criticizes me, I try my best not to be defensive. Being defensive is human nature. But I make a huge effort not to be defensive. Instead, I do everything to prove that person wrong. And that is why I've been going out of my way to do some research. Yeah, and I've even been taking in documentaries that may be strange for me to watch. Yeah, I wouldn't have watched them in the past. Like the one I took in very recently, whose topic was, who is more sexually aggressive, the man or the woman? And they interviewed professors in psychology and experts from all over the world. You know, we still live in a man's world, and men don't understand women. In fact, they have no inkling of how a woman's brain works. Still, yeah, with all our technology and development and so on. And one of the shockers that came out of this documentary, at least it was a serious shocker to me, I had to rewind, was the following fact. Women, the vast majority of women in the world, I'm not talking about Kenya, the vast majority of women in the world would prefer to be a second or third woman to a man rather than being the only woman to a boring, useless man. What? The vast majority of women are attracted to a very small percentage of men. All of them are attracted to that very small percentage of men. You can look at it this way. It's the 80-20 principle all over again. 80% and 20%. 80% are attracted only to 20% of the men. They are not interested in the other 80% of men. In fact, at times, they can throw up just thinking of the other 80% of the men. They're only focused, yeah, for them to be really happy. Their big dream is only 20% of the men. And women are also practical, yeah, and that is why a vast majority of the women would rather be the second woman or the third woman to a rich, successful, interesting man, yeah, or even if not necessarily rich, a fascinating, successful man. Yeah. Rather than be with that very boring, man full of excuses, or rather excuses of a man that falls in the other 80%. That is the truth. Now, in my view, that is a very explosive revelation. Yeah. And in my view, it means that polygamy, whether me or you like it or not, is inevitable. It's going to happen. Some would say it is already happening because people have mistresses all over the world. In Kenya, we call them mipango za kando. But there's something most Kenyans don't realize. There's a very huge difference between a mistress or a mpango wa kando and a wife. In my view, it is better to have even 5 wives. They're your wives. They're under your roof. That is much better than having one wife, and pretending to all of us how good you are, and how upright, and how such a good Christian you are. Yet in secret, you have many other women. Even the spiritual impact is different. Because if you have 5 women and you stick to those 5 women, you don't have any other woman outside your marriages. In my view, that is much better. On the surface of things, many women will find this horrible, such a horrible arrangement. But in my view, it is much better, than having only one wife. Everybody says you're a good man, you're a good Christian, and yet in secret, you have about 20 women. Pretenders, my friends, are worse than murderers. I've always believed that. We also know that in the days of old, people had more than one wife. David had many wives. The great King Solomon, hata usiongee, he had many. But whatever your views are, we have to look at the social situation as it is today. Now, from a very long experience with women, I can confirm to you that women rarely say what they mean. And so, in case you see a lot of comments under this video, saying that I'm wrong, that somebody comes up and says I'm a woman, and I'm not interested in that 20%. I'm interested in my boring husband. In case you see those comments, remember what I've just said. And then also consider the following. We have very many single women today all over the world. And many of these single women are very busy saying that being single is okay. However, another fact, women were never wired to be single. And my apologies in advance to all the very brave single mothers, very successful, who are members of this channel. I am not hitting out at you. I'm just talking about the future. What is going to happen? Now, I discovered a few years back, I feel very stupid talking about it today, but I discovered that modern cars, are designed to balance. What that means is that all the tires must be as balanced as possible. If those tires are not balanced, at certain speeds, you could even hear the car making a noise, and that's exactly what happened to me. And I thought there was a major mechanical problem with the vehicle. However, on going to see my trusted mechanic, all he did was to change the worn-out tire, in one of the wheels. Problem solved. Why was that problem solved so quickly, so miraculously? Because that is the way that car is designed. That is the way cars are designed these days. That is the way cars are wired. And that is the way women are wired. I don't want to say too much about this very hot, controversial social topic. And I'm trying my best to stick only to the facts, not even my opinions. The Holy Bible has a very curious prediction. It predicts some time in future when many women will approach one man and they'll beg him for his name. Just to have his name. Now, I'm not a prophet, neither am I a Bible scholar. So I don't know what that really means. But one thing I know, the only way a woman can have a man's name is through marriage. And whether the marriage is consummated or not, marriage means having, the name of a man next to your name. The rest in our modern world are details. Good people, in order not to cause a revolution on this channel, in order not to spark massive unrest right across this channel, to my own detriment and to the detriment of this channel, please allow me to end there. And what I'm really asking you for, indeed begging you for, is for your views. Tell me what you think. I'm sure most of you will not agree with me. That is okay. You're still my friend. I give you my word. I'll not stop loving you because you're going to tell me off in a comment and tell me how wrong I am. No. Please, feel free to speak your mind because I want to know what Kenyans really think. Until next time, this is Chris Kumekucha.